I'm bored. Let's play a game. What are you reading about this time?
Genocide.
Did you ever read anything nice?
Edgar Allan Poe. I used to have my brother read me The Raven as a bedtime story.
Well, that explains a lot.
Let's play a game. You pick. You chose a competitive game rather than a cooperative one.
It has war in the title. As a barbarian, how could I not pick it?
By choosing a competitive game, you and I are split into us and not us. This is the first stage of genocide.
What are you talking about?
After the Rwandan genocide, Dr. Gregory Stanton created a list of stages of genocide to serve as a guide and a warning. The first stage is classification. Who is one of us and who is one of them?
Uh-huh. I'll take the blue pieces. They got cooler symbols anyway.
Assigning symbols to the in-group and to the target group is the second stage of genocide.
Will you stop? Okay. If I remember the rules, there are certain things I can do that you can't.
Discrimination, the third stage of genocide, the granting of privileges and withholding of rights.
I'm not. These are just the rules. Besides, my armies are people. Yours are orcs and goblins, scum of the earth.
Ah, dehumanization, the fourth stage of genocide. You're moving quickly through these stages.
You're such a bitch. I wanted to play a game with you, but now I think I'd rather go back to being bored.
I'm sorry. Atrocities have been on my mind a lot lately.
Why?
Because around the world, there's been a great deal of talk about purity. Leaders speaking out against contamination.
I'm against contamination too. I like clean air, pure water.
Not chemical purity, social purity. A pure nation, a pure religion, a pure culture.
Yeah, people like familiar things. That doesn't make them bad people.
I agree. Let people like what they like. But some people insist that everyone must like the same things they like. In fact, they don't want to let people enjoy anything else.
That's social purity?
Broadly speaking, some leaders claim that all the people's problems can be solved by seeking purity. A pure nation, a pure religion, a pure culture. But history shows that when people allow their leaders to insist on such purity, atrocity follows. And the people themselves never benefit.
If they don't benefit, why do they go along with it?
Seduction.
Sorry, not interested.
I'm not seducing you.
You won't be seducing anyone wearing a mask like that.
I don't know. A touch of mystery can be good for a relationship. Hello there. They call me the Oracle of Solace. I like Thai food, David Lynch, and not showing my face. I hate acid, fire, and white supremacists. 3 songs that describe me are History Maker, Bad Romance, and Toccata and Fugue in D minor. The skills that have helped me most in life are staying awake through tedious lectures, managing websites, and escaping burning buildings. I'm an Apollonian on the streets and a Dionysian in the sheets. Swipe right, sweeties.
So very not interested.
Again, I'm not... What I was trying to say is that it's the leaders promoting purity who seduce the people. The impurity of the nation is what's making your lives bad, they'll say.
Like Hitler blaming the Jews for everything bad in Germany?
Unfortunately, there are more recent examples. Also, not all leaders are political leaders.
They're the ones who lead.
You can't lead people from purity to atrocity without them wanting it. It takes effort to seduce people into embracing atrocity. All kinds of opinion leaders play a part in that seduction. Political, spiritual, commercial.
Commercial?
Aren't businesses in the business of making you want what they're selling?
Yeah, but how do you sell atrocities?
By making people want them. What you said about people liking familiar things. Familiar is safe. It's no wonder we prefer the familiar. What's something you like?
Steak. I'd like a steak right now, as a matter of fact, with a salad.
Okay, what's something you hate?
That's easy. Brussels sprouts. They're disgusting.
I happen to like Brussels sprouts.
You're disgusting.
I also like anchovies.
Okay, you don't get to order pizzas ever. You're a monster.
Well done. You went straight to stages 3 and 4.
What?
I'm not allowed to order pizza, but you are. That's discrimination. And you called me a monster. That's dehumanization.
Okay, you can order pizza, but nothing other than pepperoni on my half, okay?
It's a deal. See? That's all it really takes to avoid genocide.
You're kind of diminishing genocide. People don't kill each other over their tastes in food.
Don't they? Suppose I belonged to an ethnic or religious group for whom eating Brussels sprouts and anchovies was a prominent feature, like eating only halal or kosher food.
You wouldn't be discriminated against just for your food choices.
I'd be persecuted for expressing my culture, which happens to include those foods. Suppose the government establishes special police units to surveil stores and restaurants where people of my culture might buy Brussels sprouts and anchovies. Suppose state television and radio encourages citizens to form watchdog groups to monitor anchovy eaters.
Why would they do that?
If you're marking anchovy eaters for later elimination, you're going to need to get organized. Organization is the 5th stage of genocide.
You're assuming I want to eliminate anchovy eaters.
Don't you?
Yeah, they're disgusting.
In that case, you're going to need to get more people on your side. If you're a government or anyone else who controls a media outlet, you can spread the word about how awful these Brussels sprout-loving anchovy eaters are.
Okay, how about this one? Anchovy eaters break into old woman's apartment and pummel her with oversized Brussels sprouts.
Outrageous, but not enough of a general threat.
Okay, try this. Anchovy aggression on the march. Greeks now forced to make their salads with feta cheese and with anchovies.
Only matters if you eat salads.
I eat salads.
What else you got?
Anchovy eaters. Vile or disgusting?
Run that baby!
Why can't they be both?
That's the spirit. If your audience is big enough and already agrees that anchovies are bad, you don't even need ads or special editorials. You can just salt that anchovy hate into regular news pieces. They're not simply making bad food choices, they're bad people. They're intolerant, they hate steak, and they want everyone eating Brussels sprouts and anchovies. They're coming for your steak.
Over my dead body.
That's what they're planning. And before you even recognize that you're at stage 6 of genocide, polarization, your leaders have brought you to stage 7, preparation, planning dietary purification to safeguard your meat-based way of life.
I don't want to go that far. I mean, I like steak, yeah, but if some people like little green pods and salty fishes, that's fine. As long as they don't eat anywhere near me.
Well put. We'll make certain they're nowhere near you. We'll do that by settling them into their own neighborhoods.
But there are neighborhoods all over the place right now. You never know who eats Brussels sprouts and anchovies. I didn't know you did until just now.
Precisely. We will persuade them to move into anchovy-eating areas, give them incentives to move there.
What if they don't want to move?
They can be pressured into moving. There are already government units and maybe armed citizens who can convince them. That's how we get to stage 8, persecution.
I don't like anchovies, but I would never want things to go that far.
I know, but at some point these things develop their own momentum. Once you're at the point where steak eaters and anchovy eaters no longer mingle, it becomes easier to tell steak eaters stories about how horrible anchovy eaters are, like how they're planning a violent uprising and they're coming for your steaks.
Oh boy.
At that point, there's no telling when some event, planned or unplanned, deliberate or otherwise, will trigger stage 9, extermination.
Wait, if we're talking extermination, that has to be deliberate. What are all these stages that they're not planning?
Like I said, these things develop their own momentum. You start off not liking anchovies, then at some point you take away my right to order pizza, then at some point you put me to the sword. After that, there's only stage 10, denial. You block investigations into what happened to the anchovy eaters, and if evidence comes out anyway, you deny that it was genocide.
How can anyone deny genocide?
Claim self-defense. Saying, they made me do it, is a great way to avoid admitting wrongdoing.
Even with thousands or millions dead?
Right.
You know, talking to you can be very depressing.
Reading about this is...
Depressing?
infuriating.
I've almost never seen you angry.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
I wouldn't like you when you're hungry either, now that I know what you eat.
It's infuriating because in a lot of cases where populations have mixed on an equal basis for a long time, all it takes to avoid genocide is people continuing to live as they've always lived.
On an equal basis? There's always someone on top.
Sometimes an outside force puts them on top. That's how it happened in Rwanda. European colonizers put one group, the Tutsi, in control of the majority Hutu population. The Hutu took power at independence. Once in charge, the Hutu took steps to prevent the Tutsi from ever again taking power.
What kind of steps?
Purges. Armed Hutu forced hundreds of thousands of Tutsi out of the country. The Tutsi armed themselves and came back fighting. After 30 years, the two sides agreed to a ceasefire.
Well, that's good.
It was, but some people disliked the fact that Rwanda remained a mixed ethnicity state. They wanted their homeland to be ethnically pure.
What is that? Nazis in Africa?
The venue may change, but it's always the same terrible show. Hey, how are ya?
You again. Why are you here?
That's no way to greet an old friend, especially when I got another show for you.
Is it any better than the last one?
The 12 Theses against the un-German spirit?
12 Theses. More like 12 feces. They bombed in Europe.
But it did very well in the North Korean market when I rewrote it as 10 Principles of the One Ideology System. People were starving for more. And the African version, the Hutu 10 Commandments, made a killing.
Okay, give me the pitch.
Right. First, we tell the audience how special they are, except for the guys in the aisle seats who are complete bastards. They tracked in mud from the street, so they're dirty. They don't brush their teeth, so they have bad breath. They don't wash their hands before coming out of the bathroom, which they do all the time because that's why people get aisle seats, so everyone they touch gets E. coli.
Ew.
It gets better. There's audience participation, very artsy. We find audience members who want to participate, and we have them round up all the aisle dwellers and stick them in the orchestra pit, which is empty, by the way. Any of them try to leave the pit, they get clubbed. Any family members object, they get clubbed and thrown into the pit. Any bystanders object, they get clubbed and thrown into the pit. The folks who like clubbing the most, I mean really let them have it, we bring up on stage and give them a round of applause. Then we get to the third act.
Which is?
At some point, the folks in the pit want to go home. We only let them leave if they give us their stuff and never come back. Anyone who refuses, we bring up on stage and beat them until they give in. At the end of the show, there's no one in the aisle seats anymore, and we've got a bunch of purses and wallets.
What the hell do you call a show like that?
Purity. As I was saying, where populations have mixed on an equal basis for a long time, all it takes to avoid genocide is people continuing to live as they've always lived. Take Bosnia.
Bosnia?
Southeast Europe. Bosnia is home to 3 ethnic and religious groups: Catholic Croats, Orthodox Serbs, and Muslim Bosniaks. These 3 groups tended to live together in relative peace unless acted on by an outside force. In the 1990s, one such force arose.
Let me guess. Someone promoting purity?
Well done. You've earned it. In 1990, Bosnia was part of Yugoslavia, a federation of Balkan Slavic states collapsing after a decade of economic crisis. Politicians in the largest member state, Serbia, sought to expand their power as the central government's power waned. The smaller states, threatened by Serbian ambitions, seceded. Serbia used the pretext of protecting Serb minority rights in those states to arm rebels. In Bosnia, where ethnicities and religions were intertwined and intermingled, this led to atrocities, all in the name of carving out ethnically pure Serbian enclaves.
I find it hard to believe that they would just start killing their neighbors.
It depends on the neighbors. Have you ever lived in suburbia? Dear, the neighbors just won't mow their lawn.
I'll go ask them about that. How do you know it happened that way?
I admit I'm no expert, but I read a lot.
I've noticed.
And no matter whom I've read, there are key facts on which the experts agree. Here's one quote that stuck with me. The price demanded of ordinary Bosnians that would have enabled them to live together in peace was a comparatively small contribution of normality and goodwill. The majority were happy to pay that contribution. A minority, acting under the direction of a neighboring state, were not, and they had the guns.
Guns? Did the neighboring state give this minority guns?
You see where this is going. That was stage 5. Stage 6, polarization, was done by state media, all of which was run by Serbian nationalists. They lied to the people, claiming that the Muslim Bosniaks were preparing a jihad.
People were told that their neighbors were preparing a jihad and they believed it?
Not everyone believed it, but enough did, especially Serbs who lived in areas with no Muslims. Mind you, it's easier to believe Muslims are preparing a jihad if, like in Myanmar, they're no longer allowed to live with you. That's why Buddhists are killing Muslims over there. It's harder to make people believe the worst of those who live with you, like how Muslims and Catholics and Orthodox lived together in Bosnia. But it can be done. You can skip preparation and persecution and go straight to extermination.
How?
Lies. Lots and lots of lies. You lie to them in the daytime, you lie to them in the night, you play to their fears.
There's a lot of sources for news. Not all of them are going to tell me that neighbors are preparing a jihad.
That's why you make it impossible or undesirable to seek out other sources of information. If all media is owned by a power-hungry faction, or by entities aligned with that faction, or if that faction can convince people that other media sources lie, then people will think what the faction wants them to think, and give that faction power.
So the media tore Bosnia apart.
Mass media is critical to holding a nation together, or tearing it apart. Think what it would be like if, in the United States, there was a media organization running a campaign to split Americans by race or religion or ideology, and every media outlet allied with this effort followed the same party line. How long do you think the United States could last?
Wait, that's happening right now.
It's always happening somewhere.
No, it's happening right now in the United States. Fox News, talk radio, I really think they turn Americans against each other.
Why do you say that?
They don't do both sides anymore. They don't want people to be well informed about any issue.
You could say the same about American media in general.
Conservative media now is a big business that works hard to make liberals and those with different opinions bad guys. They don't even bother with facts or polls or anything. Just hatred and division. That's all they want. Americans tear each other apart just to satisfy some stupid herd identity. Conservative media like Fox News and conservative talk shows don't talk about policy or issues. They talk about owning the libs and how bad liberals and Democrats are. If you follow them and swallow their bullshit, you're a good little patriot. If you don't, you're un-American scum. It's just sickening.
Conservatives are only trying to preserve the America they know.
But the America they know doesn't exist. It may never have existed.
Consider this. The typical Fox News viewer is a white male over 64 years old, maybe born in the late 40s or early 50s.
Okay, a boomer.
Yes, he would have grown up at a time of unprecedented prosperity, but also unprecedented social turmoil. As a youth, he would have gone to his neighborhood schools, but as a young parent, he might find the federal government mandating that his kids take a long bus ride to another town or city, and that incoming buses populate his neighborhood schools with inner-city kids.
You mean black kids?
Yes, but my point is, it's easier to turn people against the federal government when one of your earliest interactions with it as an adult involves federal court orders sending your kids to a distant school.
Busing made boomers racist?
As they say in Avenue Q, everyone's a little bit racist. People like the familiar and fear the unfamiliar. If you don't know any black people, it's easier to fear them, and a long history of segregation makes it very hard for black and white Americans to get to know each other.
You said conservatives are trying to preserve the America they know. A segregated America isn't worth preserving.
Certainly not. Life under segregation was absolutely appalling for millions of Americans, and made racial purges like Tulsa 1921 more likely.
What's Tulsa 1921?
I'll tell you about it sometime.
I'm sure you will. But is that really what conservatives want? A segregated America?
A whiter America like they remember. You know, there was an America First movement 80 years ago, just as authoritarian as today's, but it didn't take root in American politics.
How was it stopped back then?
It didn't really need to be stopped. America was 90% white, and every powerful politician was a white man. Very reassuring if you happen to be a white man. Furthermore, through all the turmoil of the day, the government took great pains to tell people that there was nothing to fear.
Except fear itself.
Right. Unfortunately, both major parties also shared a commitment to white supremacy. Despite this, voters who demanded undemocratic government action to solve the problems of the day, namely the economic collapse of the Great Depression, were spread thinly between major and minor parties.
We went through the Great Recession just before the Tea Party showed up, and those asshats went on to be Trump's America's Firsters.
Yes, they did. And that happened because by the start of the Great Recession, politics was hugely different. The Democrats, once home to the most ardent segregationists, had abandoned their ironclad commitment to white supremacy, and in fits and starts over 2 generations, began championing civil rights. Today, America is only 2/3 white, and politically active non-whites are gaining power. Women are gaining power. Starting in the 60s, Republicans positioned themselves as the party of order in a world of chaos, which attracted to themselves all of America's authoritarian voters. After 9/11, there was a Republican government fueling fears of terrorist strikes from abroad, and an entire conservative media ecosystem telling people to be afraid.
It's worked. I've never seen so many people so afraid of so many different Americans. It's just mind-blowing cowardice.
Which different Americans do you mean?
They're afraid of anyone who isn't a straight white Christian male humping the flag the way their orange Julius Caesar does.
Would you say they want purity? A white, straight Christian America?
Yes. And I have friends who aren't white, who are LGBT, who aren't Christian. Making America pure would hurt people I love. They're already hurt and afraid, and I swear the Trumpanzees get off on it. The conservatives I grew up with would never celebrate the fear they put into their fellow Americans.
So now you know what it feels like to be living in stage 6, polarization.
Let's hope it doesn't get any further than that.
Who says it hasn't? We've known since a 2017 meeting between the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the Secretary of Homeland Security that Trump wants to nullify the documentation for millions of resident non-citizens. Doing that would make them eligible for deportation. To me, that sounds like stage 7, preparation.
I don't want to hear this.
And we have detention camps where tens of thousands of refugees arriving here legally have been concentrated alongside people swept up in immigration raids. Documented and undocumented non-citizens alike are afraid to call the police because they might get tossed into camps. Stage 8, persecution.
Do you think we're that close to actual genocide?
I don't know. I don't think so, but the warning signs are there. The same warning signs as in Bosnia and Rwanda and Myanmar. In every case, once persecution had begun, any number of incidents, planned or unplanned, could trigger mass expulsion, including killing. All in the name of purity.
The people in those other countries, did they get their purity?
No. They got ruined communities and thousands of graves. But their leaders did well for a time.
Of course they did. Some people will do anything to hold power over others.
Most of those leaders were later tried and convicted of war crimes.
Well, that's good.
Let's hope the American people notice the warning signs before they contaminate their souls in the pursuit of purity.
And what do you benefit if you gain purity but lose your soul?
A biblical paraphrase. It seems I'm rubbing off on you.
Now I'm really depressed. Sorry, I don't want to play anymore.
It's probably for the best. By the rules of this game, I have unlimited reinforcements and you do not.
Oh, different rules. Discrimination.
Yes.
I'll be in the TV room watching My Little Pony Friendship It's Magic and Doctor Who.